Assalamualaikum. My name is SHARIFAH FARAH, BINTI SAYID MUSTAZA from AM1104G. So, my part is introduction. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad administration as the fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia, he had advocated the ASEAN value as the rejection of Western value in ASEAN society. The idea of ASEAN value in Tun Dr. Mahathir can be seen from his manifestation in the changing orientation of his own administration. This means that the ASEAN society value the community value, hence it is not suitable for the ASEAN society to absorb the Western value. Moreover, Malaysian citizens comprise of plural society, which most of the races are the Malay, Chinese, and Indian. Therefore, from Mahathir perspective, there is a need to get rid the West value to protect the harmony, value, and culture through the preservation of ASEAN value. That's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and hi. So my part is respect to authority. Authority means a group of people that have official responsibility for a particular area of activity. Authority is important to ensure the stability of the state itself. Tun Dr. Mahathir state that important to have strong authority to ensure the society can be protected. The respect for authority have large scope in our society that in terms of respect to our parent and leader. As one of the ASEAN countries, Malaysia needs to support the idea of respect authority because authority guarantees social stability. Without authority and stability, there can be no civility. Civility is important if the state want to have a good relationship with the people within the state itself. This shows that respect for authority is one of the important features of ASEAN value. Starting between family is characteristic of respect for authority. Respect earned from the house itself among families might assist to strengthen family connection. Respecting the family between family helps strengthen family bonds. This is because when the family relationship is strong, they are most likely to gain trust without feeling uncomfortable. For example, at home, youngsters must respect their parents without being defiant. Similarly, in our state politics, a good relationship may be formed if each politician respect each other's ideas without harboring emotion of animosity. This implies that disciplinary conduct has been a part of his life since he was a youngster, who explained why his behavior has resembled what he have impacted from infancy. We can understand why Dr. Mahathir attached great importance to ASEAN ideas such as respect for authority. Power help to create a decent government that protect people right while ensuring social well-being. The characteristic of respect for authority is the expressed in political terms. Respect for authority is important because it can make Malaysia a better place. Malaysia is known as a democratic country, allowing people to choose the best representative according to their preferences. Most votes can be representative, and the more victories a party has, the more likely it will be in power. For example, during pre-14, under the leadership of Tun Dr. Mahathir, first defeated Barisan Nasional and then Pakatan Harapan. The defeat of Barisan Nasional made them lose respect for the people due to abuse of power and corruption. It is because people did not choose Barisan Nasional without trusting them. According to Tun Dr. Mahathir, they must first win the trust of the public before they can win the respect of the authorities. During pre-14, we can see that how does gain the respect of the society toward the authorities. We can see how Tun Dr. Mahathir has influenced society, especially the younger generation, enabling them to carry out the reform that people want. According to Tun Dr. Mahathir, to acquire the respect of authority, they must first gain the trust of the public. Lastly, the characteristic of respect for authority is by following the rules and regulations that have already been stated in the Federal Constitution. This will result in a better country and will also aid in the development of our country. It can be observed that rule and regulation are a crucial component in persuading the populace to accept authority. As a conclusion, one of a one of the characteristics of ASEAN values as political ideology promoted by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is respect for authority. To earn respect for authority, Mahathir believed that we must first gain the trust of the people. Following the law and regulation in another method to demonstrate respect for authority. Malaysia, as an Asian country, must embrace the concept of respecting authority since authority ensures society stability. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is FARHANA BINTI Muhammad SAUFFIE, and I will brief about emphasis on ethics. Ethics can be defined as the system of moral principle in a group of society and also can be defined as habit custom. It is the way of how society live. As example, good ethics in the perspective of Asian value can be observed in the way of how Japanese society live, such as the practice of punctuality and discipline in the workplace. So, look is policy is the one of the emphasis on ethics. This is because of Tun Dr. Mahathir wants to make each country such as Japan and South Korea as the role model in the term of its work ethics, technological advancement and economic progress rather than waste country. But they had implementation of Look East policy. Firstly, to create several programs from Look East policy. This aim to observe the culture and ethics from successful countries like Japan to drive Malaysia to follow the steps of Japan. There are two parts under the programs of Look East policy, which are by sending the Malaysian students to Japanese university and also to give training to the trainers in the Japan industries. The second one is the application of 5S concept. Generally, 5S concept short from set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain, which based on the Japanese system. The 5F concept basically aim to increase the productivity and effectiveness at the same time, emphasizing on the values such as neatness and discipline in organization. Furthermore, the implementation of the Look East policy, almost 40,000 Malaysian students and trainees have involved in the exchange program. Other than that, impact from the application of 5S concept also change the value in the public sector and private sector as it promote the efficiency and good work ethics in the workplace. So this is the manifestation from Tun Dr. Mahathir inspiration on each country such as Japan and South Korea. And till today, the initiative from Look East policy somehow is still relevant as the approach of this policy able to give benefit toward the development of the country.
Assalamualaikum. My name is AISHAH binti OTHAMAN. Now I will present about against concept of universal human rights. Okay, first, definition of human right is human rights are a fundamental right that all people must have. Thus, the government has committed to provide the framework to ensure that everyone has their own set of rights. This right include the right to life, the right to justice, the right to equal opportunities, the right to speak, and so on. Human rights are intrinsic to all individuals, regardless of nationality, a place of residence, gender, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or other status, according to the United Nations Human Rights Declaration 1969, 2020. We all have the same right as our human rights, that if there is no discrimination. These rights are inextricably linked, interdependent and extricably linked. Since the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, there have been conflicts within the concept of Asian values regarding numerous leaders and thinkers in East Asia who have stated that rights genuinely universal in BBC News. Next is Vienna Declaration of 1993. The Vienna Declaration of 1993 said that all human rights are universal, indivisible, interdependent and linked. The importance of national and regional differences, as well as various historical, cultural and religious backgrounds must be considered. It is the responsibility of states to market and protect all human rights and fundamental freedoms, regardless of their political, economic or cultural systems, which is Rights and Opportunities Foundation. Third, debates between leaders. In 1990, a group of important East Asian leaders, including Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, they were discussing the concept of universal rights, which states that rights are culturally related to Western nations. Supporters of Asian ideals, on the other hand, say that the East and West have vastly different values and customs. Asians, they believe, are more motivated to respect society, whereas Westerners are more independent. Furthermore, Asians place a greater emphasis on order and harmony, whereas Westerners place a greater emphasis on personal liberty. He was told that this approach was potentially harmful to Malaysian culture and non-secular beliefs. To avoid this, Dr. Mahathir came to terms with the concept of cultural relativism. It is about his concern that Western individualism will have an impact on Asian values and tradition in the long term. Next is Tun Dr. Mahathir perspective. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has been arguing for their own interpretation of Asian ideals. In addition, human rights should be used to protect and assist communities and individuals. Cultural relativism, on the other hand, is defined as the argument that human values, far from being universal, varies widely from one culture to the next. Some would apply relativism to the promotion, protection, interpretation, and application of human rights, which is can be understood in a variety of ways across cultures, ethnicities, and religions. To put it in another way, according to this viewpoint, human rights are culturally relative rather than universal. Other than that, cultural relativism refers to the ability of a grasp a culture on its own terms. While according to Tun Dr. Mahathir, if the values were applied to Western people, it would most likely become a habit for them. But if the values were applied to Asian people, it will cause some problems and issues with regard to Western values. As a result, he has refused to endorse a universalist view of human rights based on a Western principle. Next is limitation of human rights. Malaysia, as we all know, it has unique set of values and cultures based on tradition, religion and ethnicity. As a result, despite having the freedom to exercise right, there are just a few things to try. As a result, Dr. Mahathir has stated that there will be certain limitation and that we must exercise our right to have our own value system and to stabilize our country. For example, LGBT situations of human rights and couple will not be allowed since Malaysians are unaccepting of the issue. Aside from that, to ensure that the country has departed with a democratic system that has given the people the right to speak up and own their rights, a few things must be considered and a few methods must be implemented to ensure that each party plays a role in building a harmonious state. Last but not least, strategies to control human rights. There is two two things in this point, which is first is control the media. The necessity of ensuring that the media is often in favor of the government is one of Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad's policies. This is because, according to Tun Dr. Mahathir in 1999, there should be no mistake. Those who control the media, not even the governments of small developing countries or large ones, will have complete control over our brains and without a doubt, the globe. Only a few people in the West have complete influence over the international media. Tun Dr. Mahathir's government used this justification to rationalize its control over local media. The government also used its authority to improve media regulation, particularly the Printing Presses and Publications Act. To regulate both domestic and international media firms. The government, on the other hand, cannot regulate the flow of information from the internet. The second one is creating Internet Security Act, which is ISA. Tun Dr. Mahathir has criticized civil society movements, particularly non-governmental human rights organizations, which is NGOs, accusing them of acting as agents of Western powers. Human rights campaigners who are frequently supported by foreign government and organizations are seen by the Tun Dr. Mahathir administration as a barrier to the country's economic development and a threat to national stability the national stability. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad in 1982, he stated that civil society movements should be restricted from interfering in politics since they obviously intend to weaken government authority and do not serve the public good. To summarize, there was a limit on the reason for protecting the country's welfare during the days of Malaysian people's human rights. Every citizen has freedom to talk, but he must be restrained in order to avoid inciting violence. Culture, race and religion all play a role in Malaysian administration, ensuring that all citizens' needs and rights are met. As a result, in terms of Asian values, Tun Dr. Mahathir opposed human rights universalism and favored cultural relativism. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is SITI binti Muhammad SATAR, and I will continue the presentation about Malay Islamic culture and should be protected against absorption by Western value. So Mahathir reject universalism or the Western liberal nation of human rights, which he believed can corrupt Malaysian culture and religious belief. Concerned about the influence of Western individualism and the future of Western values and tradition, Mahathir accepted the idea of cultural relativism and launched the Look East policy in 1982 as a broad campaign against Western value. Mahathir taught the 1982 United Malays National Organization UMNO. So to replicate the diligence, the General Assembly should look east. Cultural relativism, on the other hand, is defined as the argument that human values, far from being universal, vary greatly depending on different cultural viewpoints. Some would extend the relativism to the promotion, protection, interpretation, and application of human rights, which might be viewed differently across cultural, ethnic, and religious lines. In other words, human rights are culturally relative rather than universal according to this viewpoint. So, in agreement with cultural relativism view, Mahathir claimed that Western pressure on developing countries, including Malaysia, abuse human rights and democracy is intent to cause instability, economic decline, and poverty. With such a situation, they can threaten and control us. Westerners argue Mahathir generally cannot rid themselves of this sense of superiority. He explained that they still consider their value and political and economic system better than any others. It would not be so bad if it stopped at that. It seems, however, that they will not be satisfied until they have forced other countries to adopt their ways as well. Everyone must be democratic, but only according to the Western concept of democracy. No one can violate human rights. Again, according to their self-righteous interpretation of human rights, Westerners cannot seem to understand diversity, or that even in their own civilization values differ over time. Mahathir further argued that the West has a long history of human rights violation and has hardly been a paragon of democracy and justice. The groundless sense of superiority prevents the West from seeing the rationality in Eastern values. Likewise, the Western media are sometimes portrayed as accomplices in serving dominant Western power interests and values. And Tun Mahathir encouragement regarding ASEAN value, which is Mahathir explained that Mahathir government exploit this reason to legitimize its control over the local media. The government also exercised its power to strengthen the media law, particularly the Printing Press and Publication Act, and to control the local media companies as well as foreign publication. The government, however, is unable to control the flow of information from the internet. Besides the media, Mahathir was also critical toward the role played by the civil society movement, especially human rights non-governmental organizations (NGOs), and accused them as agents of Western power. The Mahathir government was of the view that human rights activists, often encouraged by foreign countries and organizations, are a hindrance to the country's economic development and jeopardize its stability. Mahathir argued that the activities of movements in civil society that tend to meddle in politics should be curbed, as they clearly aim to weaken government authority and do not contribute to the public good. The government believes human rights NGOs should be closely monitored, as they can influence public opinion, endanger public order, and even obstruct well-planned national development. It should be borne in mind that Mahathir's ASEAN values provide a very effective response to critique. Further, by posing his action as a product of unique ASEAN culture, Mahathir successfully established a case in the international arena to justify his pursuit of a state-led development. Mounting Western criticism of practice in Malaysia could now be safely deflected and indeed dismissed as the root, incentive, and misinformed interjection of another race lacking any understanding of ASEAN values, practice, or aspiration. That's all from me. Thank you.
As conclusion, throughout 22 years as the Prime Minister, Tun Dr. Mahathir has significantly changed and driven the point of view on how Malaysia is going forward in its economy, technological investment, and social development. This is because the absorption of waste value will undermine the harmony of the Asian society, as is not suited for our Asian society, especially for Malaysia, which consists of plural society. The manifestation of Tun Dr. Mahathir model, which is based on the value, can be seen from the Mahathir model, which is based on the Malay Islamic culture, universal human rights, emphasizing on the education and ethics and respect for the authority. As for Mahathir, he believed the value of culture and society will drive a society to either successful or destruction, and for any culture, the Mahathir model somehow success in the changing in the point of view. Malaysia until today is still relevant in the process of Malaysia modernization and development. That's all from us. Thank you.